Hello, welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. We are post Microsoft Ignite. We had all the big announcements. We talked about quite a lot of them last week, so you can go and check that video if you didn't see it. And a few other things just kind of falling out of that this week. Not loads and loads to talk about really, but yeah, kind of good just to kind of keep up with everything that's going on. So really three things I want to talk about this week to keep you up to date. The first of those is around App Studio. So if you don't know, App Studio is the thing that you use to create Microsoft Teams apps and use to package those applications. It's been around really since Microsoft Teams has. It's been the way that you create apps for Microsoft Teams. And yeah, that makes it nearly 4 years old, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, it's being phased out. It's being depreciated and replaced. It's technology, if you like, its functionality, the stuff it does isn't going away. That is all staying, and that's being replaced by something else called Developer Portal, or the Developer Portal. So I did a blog post in the week about this, because if you are using App Studio at the moment, if you go and look at App Studio today, you'll see a message that says it is being depreciated on January 1st, or deprecated on January 1st. And it's being phased out and being replaced by, the Developer Portal. So what is the Developer Portal? It's essentially the same thing. It's the same functionality, that same mechanism that you use to create applications for Teams. All of that stays exactly the same. The key difference with the Developer Portal is that you can access it in a web browser, or you can access it as a Teams application. With App Studio, it was only ever something that you did in a Teams application. And I guess that kind of limited it a bit. For whatever reason, because now the Developer Portal is something that works either in the browser, completely standalone. You can go to dev.teams.microsoft.com, or you can do it and go and find the application in the App Store. It's called Developer Portal. So in the blog post, I kind of go through what the message looks like. I actually did a walkthrough of App Studio nearly 4 years ago, so you can go and check that out if you want like an old school view of what App Studio was 4 years ago. This is what Developer Portal looks like now, and a lot of the functionality is the same. So if you look down the left-hand side here, this is how you're building out your application. You can see there's a lot of commonality here with what App Studio does. So what to look for in the Teams App Store, because that process of replacing this application is not going to be automatic, I don't think. They are two very separate applications, so you need to go and find the Developer Portal application. So that might be a pain for you if you're in a very locked down environment. You probably want to get that ask into your administrator now before January the 1st. If it takes a little bit of time to get your applications approved, you probably want to get that done. The alternative right now is that you can go to dev.teams.microsoft.com and use exactly the same functionality there. There's a few other things as well in here that are not in App Studio. So for instance, the Scene Studio, which you use to create new together mode scenes. You can do that as well, by the way. You can create your own together mode scenes. I talked about it quite a long time ago now, a build, I think. Anyway, that's in the Developer Portal, so you can go and check that out. I don't know what I think about this, actually. There's a bit of, it's fine. Really broadly, it's fine. It makes no real difference. Developers building apps can still do so. This is just kind of moving the environment in which they do it. I'm sure that we'll see more things come to Developer Portal that eventually make it, more useful than App Studio ever was, because that's where the investment is and that's where the new features are going to come. Does it make it better being in a web browser than in a Teams application? I don't know. For me, no, it doesn't really make any difference, but maybe it does for some other people. Maybe there's environments and situations in which having it in a web browser is better than having it in an app. I kind of struggle to know what those are, but also there's a part of me that thinks this kind of actually undermines the whole Teams app story. If the thing that you use to build apps can't exist by itself as a standalone Teams application, you're kind of undermining this whole point of building apps in Teams. And I think it does. I think you can have all this functionality in a Teams app. I don't really understand why it's important to have it run as a standalone web application. Maybe there's reasons like big orgs, enterprises who lock down applications, who don't want users downloading stuff from the store. Maybe that's the use case. I don't know. But I feel like there's different ways to solve that problem. but whatever, we are where we are. Like, it doesn't matter really. We'll continue to build applications. It's just using a slightly different tool. And I imagine under the hood, a lot of the code is actually the same, because if you look at that process of building applications, if you go and look at the developer portal, it's got a lot of the same stuff in it. So it's kind of hard to imagine they didn't, borrow and adapt and innovate on a lot of the work that App Studio has already done. So that's a big one really for developers, because this will impact you if you're building anything that turns into a Teams application. You'll need to be aware of this. So that's the biggie for this week. Other things happening this week. So I talked about this a little bit just in passing in last week around a sandbox environment that you can create for your Teams development using the Microsoft 365 Developer Program Sandbox to stand up a brand new application that is fully populated with Teams content and has a bunch of Teams users all ready to go and some teams and channels and all that already created. I talked about it really briefly last week and said I should probably do a video about it. So I did do that video. So you can go and watch it now. Here it is. It's called Walkthrough Microsoft 365 Developer Sandbox. You can go and watch it on YouTube. You can get to it from this blog post that I'll link to. And you can go and start building your own sandbox at aka.ms/m365 dev program. So this is 100% worth doing. If you want an environment to test on, if you want an environment to dev on, if you just want a new environment to try something out on and you're not sure how stuff works out of the box, if you think that maybe your environment has just been configured so many times or configured by different people that you're not quite sure if what you're looking at is meant to be happening even. So you can go and just spin up a new environment and just try something out. Free for 90 days. It's really good. I walk through that process. It's very easy to set up. So that's what I wanted to walk through, that setup process. So you understood, what do I need to do to actually set this stuff up? Do I need a credit card? Do I need to have a bunch of information? Do I need approval or permission from anyone? Nope. You don't need any of those things. You can just get going. And it's really nice. It's really good. It gives you a whole bunch of users, lots of control. It's really nice. So check that video out if that sounds interesting. Okay, and lastly, the last thing I want to tell you about is it's a breaking change. It's to one of the API endpoints in Microsoft Graph. It's a new endpoint, really, relatively new, and it's the attendance report API call. So you can use this one to get information about the attendees of meetings after the fact. So when people join and leave, how long they stay in the meeting, all that sort of stuff for attendees. And this has been in here for a little while. This is not a new API call or anything like that. What's changing is it's being the part of the meeting attendance report that is specific to attendance records. So the bit that tells you about the attendees, that's been promoted to a navigation property. So promoted to a navigation property, what does it mean? It means that you won't get it by default. You need to use the expand keyword to get it out of a select statement. So hang on. Here's the blog post. I haven't done my own blog post about this because it's kind of quite a small piece of information, but this is their blog post. And this is the bit I'm talking about. So this, you'll see this elsewhere in other parts of Microsoft Graph. You won't get that information automatically or like natively, if you like, or by default. You'll need to specifically ask for it using the expand option. So that is worth knowing about, because this is going to break anything that you've got right now that calls the meeting attendance report endpoint and then expects to get attendance records, because you're not going to get them unless you specifically ask for them up front with this in this option. Okay, so just want to be aware of, it's rolling out in a few days' time when I'm recording this, November 19th. No other kind of changes to the stripe, the shape or anything like that change. It's just you're going to not get this information by default. So if you start getting really strange errors where you're not getting the information back that you expect from the API because you don't have the attendance record information, just be aware that you might need to be specifically asking for it now using the expand. So one to watch out for, I think, because this will silently break applications, which is why they're doing the blog post. And a reminder as well that this is a beta endpoint and these things often happen in the beta endpoint. I think without having much evidence of this, I would say it feels a bit like Microsoft are being a bit punchier with making breaking changes to the beta endpoint more often. And maybe some of that is just the pace of change is faster. Maybe I'm just paying more attention than I did previously. Or maybe it is just that, they're taking advantage of the fact that it's a beta endpoint. There are no SLAs here. Like, they can make breaking changes. They don't even really have to tell you about them. It's a courtesy that they do, and they always do, I think, tell you about them and then, give you some notice. Sometimes it's not very much notice, but and sometimes things happen and things break that they didn't intend, and they are unexpected consequences, and then they kind of clear them up after the fact. So all of that is kind of part and parcel of being on the beta endpoint, and that's the reason we have a beta endpoint. Really, it allows Microsoft to make these changes to get stuff right, and they get it right, get everything lined up, get it working perfectly before promoting it to the 1.0 endpoint. And that's the whole point, and that's why those of us that use the beta endpoint, it's a useful way of feeding back information to Microsoft as well and saying, hey, this isn't working, this is working, and so they can get all that stuff lined up before it goes into 1.0. The reason for doing all that is that as soon as it hits 1.0, it's covered by a lot of the SLAs and a lot of the support stuff, and so it becomes much harder for them to make these kind of changes that will impact developers. So it's good for everyone all round that we have a fast-changing beta environment. I think that Microsoft are not afraid to play with and not afraid to change and break and make better over time. So that's just my thoughts on that. Anyway, those were the three things I wanted to tell you this week. So kind of a quiet week, I think, for big news as far as I'm aware. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out. We're looking forward to the European Collaboration Summit at the end of November, and so that's going to be in sort of 3 weeks' time. I think that is going to be a really good event, really exciting. There's lots of speakers, there's lots of Microsoft going to be there, there's lots of information, lots of sessions. I think that's going to be a good one for lots of learning and, as well as the kind of conferencing of the networking and the catching up with everyone. So that's going to be a good one to look forward to. I think I'm going to be doing some videos in the run up to that as well, covering it, and I'm going to be there as well. Fingers crossed, touch wood, as long as everything else in the world goes smoothly. That's the plan. So we'll see, and I'll do videos from there as well. All right, that's everything from me. Whatever it is you're doing today, have a great one, and I will talk to you again next time.